There we are.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear us okay?
I sure can.
All right. How are you?
I'm good. Look what I put on. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, look at. There's my Bigfoot shirt.
Very nice.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for my husband.
Your mic's not on time.
Hey, Terry. How's it going?
Good morning.
You waiting on Dan?
I am. Yes.
Okay, cool.
He'll be just a few minutes. We can start whenever. He'll just join us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, welcome to the show. Dan's going to join us here in a minute. We appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely.
We know you're from British Columbia. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you had a couple experiences and a Bigfoot sighting in that area that you're in, or around British Columbia anyway, right?
Yes, around Hope, BC.
Hope, BC. Okay. When did that happen? Your sighting?
So we went out 2018, and or was it 2017? We went out hunting, and
okay. Hey, so let me start over. I'm sorry. I thought I hit record, but it wasn't recording.
It's okay. That's okay. Dan's coming now, anyways.
Okay, good. We'll start with Dan then. We'll jump into the intro.
Sure. Trust me, you want me to have my coffee this morning. It's early.
I'm sure it is.
And my first day off. So I was like, well, that's okay, or I'll turn into Bigfoot myself, right?
You can just take a nap after. How about that?
All right.
Wow. That is beautiful up there.
Hey, Dan.
Hello. Good morning.
Terry, Dan, welcome to the show. Thank you guys for being here today. We appreciate it.
That's good to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
We were talking before, and you guys are in British Columbia, and you guys had a couple of Bigfoot experiences and even a sighting there in British Columbia. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you said that happened, what year was it?
2017, the first incident. It was over 3 years.
Okay. Well, why don't you guys take us into the first one and tell us what was going on and what happened to you?
Sure. So we were out. We decided to go hunting. We were bear hunting, and go out to our normal spot. And we went in about 17 kilometers, and it wise off to the right. So we went all the way up. And as we're coming out, I said to Dan, I said, "Stop! I gotta go pee." You know, we're out there in our Jeep, and and you're just really roughing it out there. And there's no porta potties anywhere, so you're just gonna be yourself. And so I always watch my Bigfoot shows. So I go pee. I said, I'm going to do a Bigfoot wood knock. So I grab a piece of wood, and my wood, went to hit another stump or something, and it went plop, like no noise, not like a tree. So I thought, okay, I'll do a Bigfoot call. And so I did. And it's, dusk, right? It's starting to get dark, and we're kind of on our way out from hunting. And all of a sudden, there's a small berm and a small clear cut, and the tree line's right there. And as soon as I do my Bigfoot call, right away, we got a wood knock. And I look at Dan and go, "You heard that, right?" Like, I thought maybe I was hearing something. And it was really close. He goes, "You heard that, right?" You're in disbelief. Because, all the times we go out, I always do a Bigfoot call. I always do my wood knocks, and never have I got a response. So we're driving out. And as we're driving, I'm like, could you imagine if Bigfoot runs in front of the Jeep? What would you do? He's like, "Don't say that. It could happen," right? And I it's creepy that I say these things, because it does happen sometimes. So we go back in a couple of days later, and I said to Dan, I said, "Well, let's go back in. We'll go all the way up. We'll come back." And then Dan goes, "Well, let's go, as we're coming out, let's go a little further in on the main road." And he's like, "Okay, let's do that." So we're coming around the corner, and he's getting a little bit, deflated. Like, we're not seeing any bears. It's the last day of bear season. So as we're coming in, there's 2 tree lines that open into 2 cut blocks just past the tree line. And as we're coming around the corner from coming out of the offside road, he's like, "I'm just not going to see my bear." And I go, "Honey, you're going to see there's your bear right there." And we both just stopped dead in our tracks. And we watched something go from right to left, and both of us hunt. And what we can tell you is it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a moose, and it was not a deer. It was almost like we were trying to, you're trying to rationalize what you see. Cause I was always like, okay, Bigfoot's like, I'm an 80% believer. And then all of a sudden we see it and we're like, is it real? You know, did we just see what we saw?
Mm-hmm.
And so we both just sat there in the Jeep and we didn't really know what to do. We're just, you know, we saw what we saw. And as it went from right to left, it crossed a 2-lane logging road in 2 steps. And you know how when a muskox is running and they got this long hair? Well, that's kind of what we saw. Like as whatever Bigfoot's running across the road, we saw the hair pull off its back as it was running. And I said to Dan, like, oh my God, we just saw Bigfoot. And so we drove up to where we saw it, but we didn't get out of the Jeep. I think a little bit of me was scared, you know, like, don't get out. And like, we called that. Like, could you imagine if Bigfoot runs in front of our Jeep? And it did, right? So we drove up, we looked around and we didn't see anything. So we're like, okay, well, let's just leave, right? Like we just had that feeling we should just leave. So that was the first 2 incidences that we saw, like when we saw Bigfoot. But we also hiked through the same set area. We didn't realize we were hiking through it. So we decided to hike the Hudson Bay Trail. And the first day we hiked in, we hiked in 6 kilometers and stayed overnight. And you hike straight up, like off the main roads here, and you're going way off this way. And as we got to the back, there's this big valley. It's beautiful back in there. And this freak weather system came in. And we all hunkered down. It was just Dan and I and the dog. And we had a big Roddy with us. And we all crawled into the tent and, you know, stayed for the night. And we actually just lucked out because we just crawled in and the storm hit really hard. So the next morning it's wet. And we, you know, have breakfast, pack up. And we start heading up Manson's Ridge, which goes up, I think it was 3 kilometers up, all uphill in a serpentine pattern. And on the way up, I had to stop and go pee. I'm thinking there might be a bladder issue with me. But we're camping, you know, we're out there in the middle of the wilderness. So as I'm pulling my pants up, the fog is lifting. And there's this structure, like this big structure, the picture I sent you. And I'm like, oh my God, Dan, like, what is that? Right? Like we're 6 kilometers out into nowhere. And this thing was just huge logs. And I said, what would put that together? And you're kind of like, you know, at the time I didn't think Bigfoot. I'm like, that's something put that in there. And that's not man-made kind of thing, right? Like it's huge. It's not natural is what I mean. So we finished going up and at the very top, we were supposed to go down the next valley and up the next mountain, but we were at 1,400 meters as it was. And there was about a meter of snow. So Dan and I were like, well, we're not going to get up to the next one because it's 1,600 meters. So we'll just go up and we'll just come out on the next road. It's still at this point not connecting that we're coming out on the road that we saw the Bigfoot on. So we ended up going up over, and at the very top, I slipped in some snow and I jarred my hip into the ground and really hurt my pelvis. So we're way out there. So we're committed to go down and still continue our way. And I got to the bottom and I said, well, we'll just camp here at Coville Camp for 2 nights and I'll just rest. And so, you know, as you're there, you know, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just this weird feeling, right? Like it's so silent. And we set up our camp and every camp has a pit toilet and a bear cache. And we put our stuff in and our dog is with us. And for 2 days at this camp, my dog just sat there growling at something we could not see. And I'm like, Merlin, stop. Like, Merlin, stop. And he would not stop growling. He would just stare down to where the pit toilets were and the bear cache. And we're looking for bear because we're hunters, right? We couldn't see anything. We didn't smell any distinct smells. We did walk through a lot of cabbage patches, right? Skunk cabbage, because it's really remote. Like this trail was like a fur trader trail. It's where the Hudson Bay fur traders would come through to trade all their furs. And it goes from Tulameen to Hope, BC. So that's 77 kilometers in total. So we did a portion of it in 2018. And then we finished the other side coming back towards Sawakwa in 2020 during COVID, because I didn't want to be around people either. So we ended up, you know, going down through, and then, you know, we stayed, like, again, we were just like, this is weird. we had a lot of water crossings. There must have been at least 10 water crossings we had to cross from Coville Camp to Sawakwa Forest Service Road. And in 18.75 kilometers, there was not one bird, not one squirrel, not even a mouse, not even a robin. And it's like June, what was it, June?
Yeah, June.
June. And like you're expecting to hear chipmunks and squirrels chattering. It was devoid of life, this whole area. And then we realized where we were. And we're like, this is where we saw that Bigfoot. This is where we had a wood knock, like within like 2 days of each other, right? Like it was just absolutely crazy. And so as we're coming out, I said, you know, it's like a predator. Like when we go hunting for deer, the deer just, they're nowhere to be found, right? Because we're the predator. And it was like whatever was in there, you know, and even years prior, we would take our dirt bikes in the same set area and quads, and we'd ride all around up in there. And there was this one area at the very back, it serpentines at the very end. And we'd go up and park up top and walk in there. And there was this giant stump that had just been torn apart by something. And this was a massive, massive stump. And I always said to Dan, this was before we had our Bigfoot sighting, I said, this place is really creepy. Like this stump is huge. And yeah, a grizzly bear would, you know, tear a little bit apart. This thing was torn apart. And I said, something big did this, right? Never thinking that Bigfoot did it at the time, but he very well could have. Like this place gives a new meaning for like Dan would go in there. Like, what did you always tell me?
Yeah. After the sighting, before the sighting in there, I would hunt that area all the time for years without issue. And then after that sighting, it put the fear in me. I will not go back into that location at all by myself or with people. It won't happen.
And it's funny because, you know, it's unknowing. Like, is Bigfoot, like, I always look at Dan and go, like, is Bigfoot going to eat us? Or is he going to just kind of do his thing? So I reached out to, I posted the picture of the actual footage of the structure. And I said to people in Hope, I said, you know, do you know what this is? And one guy reached out to me, a native fellow that's local to town. And he said that this was a Bigfoot structure. And he walks this trail all the time with his dogs. And so I told him, I said, I didn't know. Should I be scared? You know, is he going to hurt me? And he says, Terrie, he says, I go in there. I walk the trail all the time with my dogs, and I'm one with nature. So when I'm at peace with the woods, it feels my comfortableness and it just lets me be. And I see it walking alongside me, you know, and it knows I'm there. So I don't go out of my, you know, would I take people in there to see the structure? Probably, but I'd be scared, right? I mean, I want people to know that, you know, like now I'm 100% believer because of what we saw. Like, it's hard to unsee what you see, right? It's something that you just can't forget. And there's a lot of sightings in our area, like Harrison Hot Springs. And, you know, David Pilates actually did a show up here based on the backside of Harrison Hot Springs, a Bigfoot episode. And we've had numerous, the Ruby Creek. There was a book done on the Ruby Creek. So, you know, British Columbia is, and of course, Northern Oregon and Montana, they're all big places for sightings, even Alberta, right against the Rockies, right? I don't know if Bigfoot's going to eat me. I'd like to do some gifting. I actually had a friend just reach out to me recently, and he said, Terrie, I went to the backside of Harrison Hot Springs. And he said, I went to bed and it was like, I had this out of body experience that, you know, like Bigfoot was talking to me kind of stuff, like maybe not Bigfoot, but something like that, you know? And he said, I don't know what it was. I do a lot of gifting and I keep asking, you know, please show your presence and let me know you're here. And there's a lot of theories, you know, people see Bigfoot or people hear Bigfoot or people get, you know, not attacked, but Bigfoot throws rocks and tries to, you know, generate this hostility of this is my area. Like, I don't know. I know it's out there. To me, I think Bigfoot is kind of like, is it not Australopithecus? Is it like the giant man, you know? And I think it was like a prehistoric thing that just evolved, where some people think that it can cloak. I don't know if I mean, I've watched all the shows with Expedition Bigfoot, and I think that's really amazing. And I believe a lot of their stuff. Yeah. Once you see it, you're like, yeah, that show's real. It's real. It's gotta be, right? I don't know. It's crazy.
Dan, did you believe in Bigfoot before you had your sighting? Like Terry did somewhat, 80%, or what was your thoughts about it?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't 100% for sure. For the most part, I'm a seeing is believing kind of guy. I am spiritual as well, but with Bigfoot, yeah, it's I just wasn't sure because I'd never seen any evidence myself at all. And I spent, my lifetime outside. I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad and our family. That was a lifestyle for us. We spent our entire lives recreationally outside in the woods. And yeah, so when I finally saw it, that is 100% concrete evidence to me that yes, they exist. There is no denying what I saw.
Can you describe what you guys saw?
Yeah, it from where we were, it appeared to me between 7 and 8 feet tall. Dark, long hair. I'd say the hair was probably, just guessing, 4 to 6 inches on it. Because like Terry said, as it crossed the road there in those in the 2 strides, you could see that hair just moving behind it as it was coming across. It didn't look at us. It just crossed the road and went into the woods on that side of the road. It was about probably 2 seconds. Very, very quick.
The most popular sighting out there is the road crossing sighting. Those are the ones that happen the most. And it's funny that you guys were talking about, or Terry, you were mentioning that, and then boom, there it happens. It was like it was waiting for you guys to come around the corner so it could say, okay, you wanted to see me, here I am.
Well, but that Dexter guy said to me that you are very blessed because if Bigfoot wants to show himself to you, he will. But I'm that kind of person. I joke about it all the time. And I say it to Dan. I said, I will stuff to happen. I'll say there's going to be a spider on that board when I drive in the garage that day. There's going to be, and I'll say it like 3 times, and then boom, there's a spider on that board, and I don't want to get out of my car. Right? I'm more scared of spiders than I am of Bigfoot. But I will stuff to happen. I'll say it, and then there it is. And I did. I just said it 2 days before. We joked about it, and Dan was like, "Don't say it, right? What if, right?" And then it did happen, and it was crazy because you're in disbelief, right? Like you don't really believe that what you're seeing is legit. Like your mind's playing tricks on you. And,
it is a shock. We stopped right dead in our tracks there and looked at each other and like, did we just? Like, we did. We just saw one, right? Absolute disbelief. And
we were so excited, right? Like we were like, oh my God, we saw Bigfoot. And so we're telling everybody that we know. And they're like, oh, sure you did. Sure you guys saw Bigfoot. I'm like, no, we really did. It was real. But it was funny. It sure, and again, someone said to me once, everybody will be a non-believer until you see it. You could be 70, 80, 90%. But until you see it, you're like, it's like religion. It's the hardest thing for people to believe in because seeing is believing for some people. And, I was the same way. I didn't believe in Bigfoot 100% until we saw it. And you can't tell people, like I can tell them, oh no, we did. And I tell all the, experiences that we had and the details, and people still go, yeah, it's not real. Even my own kid, I'm like, why don't you believe me? I raised you. I don't lie. Right. But he's like, Mom, Bigfoot's up there with aliens, Yeah. But we saw it, and I think if he had seen it and he was out there with us, he'd be like, yeah, Mom, oh my God, you're right. Like we've had a few different experiences, well, and then here's the other thing that actually, and I'll let Dan tell this story because our other son was part of the other thing up at a different lake, still in British Columbia. And they're pretty sure they saw Bigfoot again. Remember when you and Josh?
Yeah. We were up at another lake in BC on a hunting trip. And where the lake is situated, there's the access road comes in and right beside the campsites. So anything coming down this one road has to come past the campsite. My youngest son and I were at the camp, and he said someone's coming down the road. So we looked up the road, and I could see a form that was coming down the road, just not necessarily, it wasn't close enough to see who it was or what it was. We were chopping wood, so a couple more whacks on the wood there. Looked back, and we were waiting for this person to come past the campsite. There's no other place to go. You have to come past the campsite, and there was no one there at the campsite. Nothing came past. We didn't miss anything. So it was a little odd, like, where did this thing go? What's going on here? So we went and we had a look. There's nothing there. Nothing came past the camp. Nothing was on the road going back. Nothing was in the woods on either side. So something was there, and just in a flash like that, it was not there.
And our son was like, Dad, there's someone coming. Like, he was, because we were there, right? And he was so certain that somebody was coming.
And it's not like something had time to go back down the road or past the camp. It was just a couple whacks, with the axe on the wood that I was cutting.
It's like, kind of like a cloaking thing, right? And maybe that's where that cloaking comes in, because we were at the same lake, same campsite, and we had just crawled into bed. And like, again, like, if anybody knows Dan and I, they know that we're two legitimate people who have reputable jobs, who, like, we don't make up stories for people. And I had just crawled into bed, and our son Josh was in bed with us, camped up at this campsite. And Dan goes, "Oh my God, come here." And we go out, and I had a picture of it, but there was this thing, like, at the end of the lake, it goes off into where we go hunting, right? And at the end, so there's this thing that was floating up
in the sky,
yeah. And then floating like this, and it looked like it had like legs and arms, right? Like, but floating. And we took a video, but there's no point of reference because it's dark, and it looks like I'm just doing this with my camera, right?
It's very remote out there. No, it wasn't a drone. It wasn't a helicopter. Wasn't somebody goofing around with a little, light in the sky kind of thing like that. It was brilliant. Far, you could tell it was far in the distance, but really, really brilliant. And we watched it
almost an hour
in the sky for about an hour. And
all three of us saw it. We were just in disbelief, and we're like, so, that could be connected to what we saw. Like, it's a really remote area, and, you just don't know, right? Like, it wasn't an orb. Like, it was definitely something that was there. So, like, nobody really knows what's all connected and how Bigfoot works, and, how he cloaks, and is there black holes where he's just kind of sneaking into, and then, because he's the best hide and seek guy around, right? Like, when we drove past that tree line, and it was very thick trees on both sides. Like, it opens the cut block, but I think it ran along the edge of the trees and then disappeared. We could have gone out and looked for prints, but it was really dry. We did look on the edge of the road there because it was really dry. We're like, oh, we're not going to see anything, right? Yeah. So, but I was too scared to go in the bushes. I'm scared the best of times. Like, when we go hunting, Dan's like, if you close your eyes, would you go out there and just walk? And I'm like, and it's dark, right? I'm like, no. He goes, why not? I said, because something's going to eat me, right? Like, I go hunting, but I got a gun, right? And I'm a little scared. So, I'm surprised that it did show itself to us, because, we did have guns, because we do have cameras. And, we didn't really have time to film it, mind you, because it happened so quickly. What do you do, right?
What surprised me with the sighting, unpredictably, is for me, there was that initial surprise, that shock that we actually just saw one, and that little bit of fear that it puts into you because of that. Like, we don't know, the unpredictability of what we just saw, but at the same time, there was a sense of calm. Over, like I've asked Terry, like, do you think that, Bigfoot has the ability to influence your feeling, or, like, put a sense of calm toward you. That I'm not sure, but for me, there was definitely a noticeable sense of calm, like peace, not the scary fear, like freak out kind of stuff. Right? It was, and I wasn't really ready for that. I didn't think that would ever happen.
Yeah, we've heard that before from a few people actually, that they start out scared and then like a calm just washes over them.
Yeah.
We like to go back in the area where, the road is not a great road going in until they start logging again. For us, because we got in there because of hiking. And then when my mom finally came to pick us up out of there, I was like, oh, thank God you're here. Because there was this, I don't know, this when we hiked the trail, there was this level of like, you just knew something was there. Like, it's hard to explain. It is the most like, your dog, maybe Bigfoot didn't come in but he was at afar watching us when we were at the campsite because we had our dog. And from what we hear, he doesn't like dogs. I'm a carried, and I have a client that was trying to tell me the other day, like he's had his experiences, in lakes and in around areas in British Columbia. And he was telling me, he goes, yeah, Bigfoot does not like dogs. And he was at a campsite. They were out remote fishing, but he says he didn't feel threatened by Bigfoot. Like, he could see him. He stood at the edge of the lake and he was watching them fish. And he said he didn't want to start gifting, because he said, if you start gifting and you stop gifting, then Bigfoot gets mad. Like, where's my stuff? But then you hear other reports that, if you gift, he kind of puts something back for you, right? I'd like to try gifting. I would like to go back and see this hut, right? And see what's in it. I was too scared to go look. And then I worry, like, maybe I saw it for a reason. And then now if I go looking for it, I might not find it. I mean, I know roughly if I was on a corner going up, right? So I'd have to go back and do the same kind of thing, just keep looking at every corner. But yeah, I don't want to, I don't know, step on its toes either and make it mad. Because what if, right?
Yeah, well, you guys go way out there on your hikes. How many days do you spend out in the wilderness when you guys do these hikes?
Well, this one we hiked the other way. It was like 5 days coming back towards, because we did 4 days. We did the first night and then 2 nights camping at the second campsite. And then we hiked out to Sawakwa Forest Service Road. And then the other time, and it's funny because the same trail, right? Mm-hmm. We went the other way from Tulameen to Sawakwa Forest Service Road. So that was the 55 kilometers the other way. It took us 5 nights and 6 days. And there was deer, moose, bear, like grouse, marmots. Like, there was so much game. It was unbelievable. We're like, oh my God, like, why wasn't this on the other side? Mm-hmm. Right? But there was literally 0 animals. I don't even recall seeing a bird. There was no deer scat, like bear scat or deer poop or nothing. It was devoid of life. I can't even express how empty it was. It was just ominous. It was creepy.
So to get back to that area, I mean, you can't just drive there, right? You've got to get in on 2 feet, or is that?
Well,
yeah. There are remote access roads that come in the vicinity that will get you within.
Well, you still got to hike 3 kilometers up and down to the other side. So still 5K away.
At least 5K of wilderness hiking to get into those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how many people do that?
Lots. This trail is so frequented by, they actually have trail runners that do this trail because it is such a nice trail and it's all set up, and they clear it. Hope has a group of people that go in every year. They clean the trail up, take all the deadfall down, open it up for people, and people hike it like lots. It's a really, really popular trail.
I wonder if they've seen anything. I'm sure someone else has seen probably the same thing, or the structure or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that Dexter guy said he did, and he knows exactly where it is. And, and then you get people that say, don't go there. Don't touch it. It's Bigfoot, and leave it alone. And he wants to be left alone, and respect. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but I really want to go back. I want to know what's in there. Right. I love all you people, but like, you didn't go in that experience with me. Right.
Yeah, you guys sent the picture of the structure. We'll post that when we drop this episode on our Facebook and our website. But you also sent a couple other pictures too, I believe, right? Did you not?
I think of the area that we were in. Yeah,
Okay.
like it was really, it was beautiful in there. Like there's a lot of skunk cabbage. There would be a lot of food, for Bigfoot. Well, when we used to hunt in that area, there was so many deer in that area, and even on that side. And then it was like all of a sudden, if Bigfoot took up residency there because there was so many deer, and it is a natural migratory route through there for the game, right? So they go. There's a big park in British Columbia called Manning Park, and it's a protected reserve for animals. So they all kind of migrate through there, and Bigfoot's going to go where the food is, like any predator, right?
Yeah, and he may be dwindling it down in that area, and then he just moves on to another area.
Yeah, and this whole corridor, this whole valley, has had many, many, many sightings. To Bridal Falls, like I said, Harrison Hot Springs they actually had. It was funny. They had a big Bigfoot meet there, a meet and greet. So for the first time after seeing my Bigfoot, I went down there. Dan was working, so he couldn't come, and I went down, and I was the only person with one other guy that came to this meet and greet. And we were both just like telling our stories. And she brought pictures from Prince George. And the pictures, she says, I can't post them on social media because they're, people's personal pictures that they took. And some of them were is it the dog man? And she actually had some really like crazy pictures of this dog man. So I was like, wow, that's insane, right? But that's a different, like, that's not Bigfoot. That's more of like, people say it's dangerous. The dog man's dangerous, right? It's kind of like the devil in disguise kind of thing. And, the other guy that showed up, I mean, we got to share stories, the two of us, of our experiences. And I mean, even his were crazy. I'll send you his name and you can maybe set up a show with him, because I mean, he's had some really neat, he's never seen Bigfoot, but he's like, I want to, I'm that 80%, a believer, but he does so much research into just a bunch of different things.
He's had encounters without the actual sighting, according to him, with sounds and other things going on.
Yeah, he had
very
a whoop
interesting
one
stories,
night. Yeah. And even then, like his friend said, like, I think he had some creepy feeling or whatever one night outside the tent when they were camping, and like this whoop noise. But yeah, he's a good one to talk to as well. Like again, British Columbia it's huge, all the way up. Like they're doing that new show with Expedition Bigfoot on Alaska. They just finished doing that one, and it was crazy. And I wish I had days off to go on that cruise with David Pilates. Oh my God. I mean, come on. Like there's some great people on there. And it's a dream to meet him after watching Missing 411. And that show was crazy. And it's sad that they took it off the air.
I'll be right back.
I've looked a few times for it, and because I'm telling people about it and it's not there. So I'm disappointed, because they shared some really good stories, in regards to Bigfoot, like that one down in California. What one was it? That was the one in California.
Oh, the Sierra Camp?
The Sierra Camp one. And they hear the whooping, right? And then it's funny because I compared that. Someone would talk about how Bigfoot sounded, and it's kind of like some garbled language, like on the riverbed that night. And it actually, when I found the video on YouTube to play for my one friend, and they're like, that's exactly what I heard. Like they, so they try and mimic maybe you, but there was also one sighting, and there was a sighting here. I think it was in Mission, British Columbia. And I was showing someone the video, and you see the Bigfoot. There's a whole bus of students there, like Asian students that were visiting on a tour. And as the bus was stopped, the one guy's like, Sasquatch, like they're all confused, right? That was, they're in disbelief of what they're seeing. And they ended up going over to the edge of the roadside, and it was like a forest road kind of thing. And you see Bigfoot on all fours, like kicking stuff back like a bear, right? Because it was known to, Bigfoot mimics like a bear. And everyone's like, that's Sasquatch. And then it does this. And I always say it, and I never forget this sound. He goes, like a deep bellow. And people just they can't sound like that. And bears don't make that sound, right? So when you look at each individual experience of what people see, or, people try and debunk things. And this is a hoax, and that's a hoax. And I don't know, like, it's hard to believe what people, like, what we saw was real. And I will never forget what we saw. And it puts a little fear in you, like I know in my heart, Bigfoot's not going to be the Yeti. I don't know. He's pretty hungry up there in the cold weather, but Bigfoot, I think they want to be left alone. They have family units, I would like to try and do some gifting, right? Where it's not like food, but because then a bear will just come and eat it, right? Like, you want to know for sure that what it took was legit, because it's curiosity, right? Not because it's a food item. And then if it did come to my campsite, I'd give it all my dinner, just to have an interaction. And you wonder, like, I'm such an empath, right? Like, I feel people's emotions, and I was like, when I say I'm scared of what I like, if I was standing there, would I get out of the Jeep? Well, probably no, because your fear response is your fear response. Are you going to flee, fight, or are you going to freeze? And I know my fear response. I'm going to freeze. And I just sat there and I watched, right? Like, is it going to come back out? Like, should we go up there and look? Right. So Dan was like, well, let's just go see if there's any footprints on the ground. Right. And yeah, it was scary, but cool at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd be worried more about the grizzly bears up there than I would Bigfoot. You guys have grizzlies up in your area?
And it's funny.
We do, yeah.
It's a grizzly release in that area where we hiked through. Above, like the next mountain up at 1,600 meters, it is a grizzly release.
Whoa. What do you guys carry?
Bear spray, bear bangers.
Yeah.
Ever had an encounter with a grizzly?
Almost. Our friend did. we did an alpine hunt, and just at the 1,600 meters. That's why we were hiking back through there, and because we knew there was game, and it was it was beautiful. And he decided to hike the face of the mountain that day when we went around the other side, and he was up there without he put his pack down and his gun down, because they're out there hunting bear and deer. And he looks up, and there's a mama grizzly and her cubs. And he's like, oh my God, like, your biggest mistake ever, that your stuff's over there. And so he didn't move, and the bear just kind of sauntered off down the hill. So he was like, thank God.
I've had numerous encounters over the years with black bears and grizzly bears, but not grizzly bears in this area where we're talking about here.
Yeah, I was looking on the map where Hope, British Columbia is. You guys are just north a little bit of the Washington border, and you're right in the middle of that mountain range there.
Yeah, the Pacific Crest Trail comes through there.
Okay.
Yeah. It comes up and over into Manning Park, that park I was telling you about with the animals. And there's been a lot of sightings too on your side on the Pacific Crest Trail. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to me, I really believe, again, it's like a migratory route that, they'll drop down into the valleys when things are, too cold up high, right? As winter sets in, they come down lower. I mean, we've had significant sightings, even on Vancouver Island. Like, there's a lot of sightings.
That's probably the most popular place to see a Bigfoot these days, I would say.
Vancouver Island?
Vancouver Island.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's a guy over there. I can't remember what his name is. Because I was going to go visit a friend of mine over there, and she lives actually in his town. And I said to Dan, we should go Bigfoot hunting, right? But we say that, and Dan's like, yeah, that'd be great. It's like going ghost hunting, right? Like, you might not find nothing, or you might find something, but it's the excitement. And I would love to see, I don't know. I watch all Todd Standing stuff, and I don't know how, I'd like to believe that they're true too. Like, people are going to believe or not believe my story, right? And there's a lot of stuff out there. Like, even when Survivor Man did that episode, he went out. Didn't he go out with Todd Standing? And they went out there to Alberta, right? and they were having rocks thrown at them. And I mean, I don't really know what I would do, when something big is on the outside of your tent. And I mean, obviously it's going to look bigger because it's in the reflection of the image from the moonlight on your tent. But I don't know what I would do. Like, do you come out and go, please don't eat me? Do you come out and go, here, eat my breakfast? Like, I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I would have some impact on, maybe it would be friendly, and, maybe it would come close. Like, I want to believe that it's like Harry and the Hendersons. That movie always, but my whole life, okay, up until that movie, I was scared of Bigfoot, because my dad would say, as you can tell, I can talk a lot. And my dad would say, if you don't shut up, Terrie, I'm going to put you out there at the Bigfoot. Right. And I'm traumatized a little bit by Bigfoot. So one time we went out there and we were way out looking at this little remote cabin. And I get car sick. So I had fallen asleep in the car, and my parents put me in this cabin, but didn't tell me anything. I was sleeping. And I woke, I must've been like 3 or 4 years old. And I woke up in this cabin by myself. I thought Bigfoot took me. And this is where I'm living now, right? So I would have nightmares my whole life about Bigfoot, running up to the door, and you just get the door and there he is, right? He's staring at you through the sliding glass door window. So that when we were out there, a little bit of my childhood fear came back, thinking, oh my God, there's this hut. He's going to come out of there and he's going to come find me. I better start hiking fast because we got to get out of here, right? Yeah.
So do you guys want to see another one?
Yes, we do. And that's the thing. I do. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I want a gift, right? Like, I want to see if it will come to me and maybe just stand there, like, not harming me, but like in Todd's videos when he puts the apples out. But he's earned their trust, right? Like, I don't know if they would necessarily just trust everybody. Right? Like, they're going to be chary of strangers, like we would be chary of strangers. There's people have been shooting, like I don't want to shoot a Bigfoot just to learn the biologically how they function and what are they. I mean, in like Expedition Bigfoot, when they found that hair, and it could only be, it was affiliated with a tang DNA, which, like orangutan. What orangutan is going to live in northern Montana? It's not. Like, they just can't survive there. So, it just goes to show you that we don't need to have to kill one to have evidence. We're finding hair, we're finding footprints. And I was so disappointed. So just outside of Hope here, it's a little town called Yale. And Yale had a really cool exhibit of Bigfoot footprints. And for years it's been there. And I was like, I never went to see it because I was like, Bigfoot's, maybe real, maybe not. So it didn't really pique my interest until I saw Bigfoot. And then I went there to go see all the Bigfoot footprints, and it left the day before I got there. I was like, no, come back. So I guess, and it's, you guys have a lot of Bigfoot shows down there in the States, like, and some of them are held in like Washington, but they're still a bit of a ways away from us, right? Like, we are an hour and a half to get down to or 45 minutes to get down to the Abbotsford border. Mm-hmm. So, when we cross the border, we still got to, like, you guys, there's a show coming up, I think in Washington, but closer to the coast. And, so I'm like, it's a planned time for us that we'd have to make to go down there and stay and, take part in. But I would really love to do a Bigfoot show, or that's why I was so disappointed. My holidays were off by 1 week to go on that cruise, or I would have. I mean, that would be cool to interact with all those guys. And, there's a big Bigfoot meeting or meet and greet in Alaska there. So, I mean, that would be super cool.
Yeah, there's one in Medellin Falls. I don't know how far away that is from you guys. It looks like it'd be maybe about 3-4 hour drive for you. You could probably.
That's in Washington, right?
Yep, just in the upper northwest eastern corner.
Yeah,
northeastern corner of Washington, north of Spokane, probably about an hour or so.
Okay, yeah, I know
that's not too far away. No.
That would be one I'd try to hit. That's a big one, and I think it's outside. And if you guys have never been to a Bigfoot conference, they're awesome. I mean,
they are awesome. They look cool.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to go to one. We've wanted to a few years, but like again, you know, we have to book our holidays a year in advance. So it's like, why couldn't it just be 1 week earlier? You know, just 1 week.
Yeah.
No, where are you guys situated out of?
We're in northern Indiana, South Bend area.
Wow.
So we can go 4 hours north into Michigan, 4 hours south into Kentucky, into Ohio, Southern Illinois, and we got Bigfoot activity all around us.
And there's a lot of shows in this area.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
We go to
Well,
3 or 4 a year. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I mean, we don't, again, like, I don't know if people don't really talk about Bigfoot sometimes because there's this stigma. Like even Dan, he's like, I don't want to be made fun of. I'm like, you just get on there and you talk with me because, you know, having two people say their sightings is more, you know, it's more solid, right? Like we both were there. We both saw what we saw. And if people believe us, great. If they don't, that's okay too, right? Again, people are always going to be a non-believer until they see it for themselves, right? Like it truly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love for some of my friends who laugh at me for, you know, believing in Bigfoot to see one. I would say this before. My wife doesn't believe, and not that she's not supportive, she is, but I would almost rather her see a Bigfoot than me. So
Right? Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
I
I'm
just said
saying?
my son makes fun of me all the time. Sure, Mom, Bigfoot's real. You know, I'm like, you know, why you gotta be like that? Because we're excited. Like when we told our story, we were just like, guess what we saw? Right? And we were just so darn tickled pink that we finally saw it. And you know, it's funny. We were out hunting for bear one time in a different area, and still in Hope, just outside of Hope here. And while we were up top, it was the weirdest thing. I don't even know how to explain what we heard. It was fall.
Oh, the noises, yeah.
Like it was like a giant was walking like a dinosaur. Like we're like really remote out there, and like we're like there's no drilling out in that area there. It was just this sound like something really big walking, but it echoed, and I'm like, what would make that noise, right? Like had no idea. But these are, you know, there's only 2 spots that gave me the EBGBs, and I don't know why. Like they always say, trust your gut instinct, right? And the one is when we, you know, going into Sawakwa Forest Service Road at the very top where that big stump was, that spot always scared me. Like it just made me feel like somebody was standing there watching you, right? And then in just up the highway, or just in actually the same vicinity, one more exit off the highway up further called Dudney Creek, which is connected to the same area. We went in there and you go all the way in, and then it winds off to the left, and it kind of goes all the way to the bushes, and it dead ends inside the bushes. But there's rock formations on both sides. There is like it's just canopied over. It's just creepy. You know, like I always say to Dan, there's weird stuff that happens here. You know, like just the last couple of years, we had a young fellow go missing, and he climbed up Mount Frosty in Manning Park. And again, these trails all intermingle down into your side because you got to, or down into Washington through the Pacific Crest Trail. And this boy went missing. The search party came on because he didn't come out. He was hiking by himself, and he's a very avid hiker. And this reminded me of the missing 411 because all the criteria kind of stayed the same. But they couldn't find him, and it was winter, October. So they looked and looked and looked, and he was just such a nice guy. Apparently, they never found him till the next year. And they had infrared up there, you name it. Like the search party was huge. And the family wasn't from here. They were from, I think, back in Ontario. But their son lived out here. So they had, hired helicopters and did infrared. And I believe that 2 other people went looking for him in the search, one of which, I don't know if both went missing.
Went missing as well.
They went missing as well. And the boy was found near, he was 2 kilometers away from his backpack, and his tent and his food and his jacket, like everything that he needed to survive, he was 2 kilometers away from. And he was found in a gulch near rock formations and near water. and all that criteria, and a freak weather system actually kicked in. Actually, there was a snowstorm that kicked in, and he was nowhere to be found by his stuff. So, these things happen all around our area, and I can't even tell you. Like, there's like my husband says to me, "Would you go up that Mount Frosty?" Because we camp at Manning Park sometimes. There's beautiful campsites in there. But he says, "Would you go hiking up that?" I'm like, like, just like we were going to hike the Mount Assiniboine Trail, Dan and I. And I mean, we don't look like hikers, but we can do it if we put our minds to it, right? And we're like, I'm 51, he's 54, right? We're not young anymore. But we were going to plan to go do that. And the hardest thing is, like I'm sure you guys have down in the States too, is to book a campsite on some of these really busy trails. It opens up at midnight, forget it, they're gone in a second into midnight. So I can't hike the whole 74K, like those trail runners do it 9 hours. I'm like, no, I got to stop, right? I got to breathe. I got to rest my legs. And I really wanted to go do this trail. And Dan had this like, oh, I don't know, like I just get this bad feeling about that trail. I don't know how to put my words on it. I can't, I don't want to go. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And no sooner did he say that, there was a InReach that came out. A husband and wife and their dog were attacked by a bear off this trail, and it was a grizzly. And so they had to push off the time to get to them because there was a freak system that came in, and all three of them were killed. By the time they got there, the bear had killed all three of them. So, for Dan to say, the problem is, and we're avid hunters, right? So we believe in conservation, but we also believe in, you have to take a few of them to balance the homeostasis event, right? So there are a lot of bears now, because people used to be able to hunt grizzly. Sorry about the noise in the background. I have a very young Rottweiler running around trying to catch the cat.
I said, you got a Bigfoot back there in the background, or what's going on there?
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like.
He probably thinks he is. So, yeah, we just, it's really hard up here, right? To not see things happening around you, right? Like, or feeling things. Like I will always tell Dan how I feel. And I'm sure that if I go in there, I'm going to will a Bigfoot to show up again, because that's what happens to me all the time. Dan knows it. And this is not the third and fourth and fifth time. I say something's going to happen, and it usually happens. And he's just like, why are you doing that? Like, are you part witch? I'm like, no, I just, what you think about comes about, right? Like, it happens.
Yeah, that is partly true. You can make something happen by focusing on it and thinking about it for a long time, whether it's you that makes it happen or it just happens, I guess.
Yeah.
There's some truth to that. But yeah, you guys, that area up there, I mean, you've got, when it comes to missing people, I would say, between the grizzly bears, and if there's dogman up there, which there probably is, that would be a concern as well. I don't think Bigfoot really wants to hurt people unless you try to hurt them. I'm not saying there's some bad ones. There's probably some bad ones out there, like bad people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I don't think, to me, I don't think Bigfoot's the one that's responsible for killing people. Like, in like the missing 411, there's something else going on. Like you look at that Mesa Verde episode where it was called missing or something. I can't think of it. It was like on different places, people that were missing. And, this guy went missing at Mesa Verde, and the trails are all, concrete, and they didn't find him. And they searched for a couple of years. And then literally 2 years ago, Dan comes to me. He's like, they found that guy. I'm like, the guy that was missing on Mesa Verde. He goes, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. So, but they found him in an area that was searched already.
Yeah, that's another weird one too. And when they found the guy you were talking about earlier, I'm assuming it was just skeletal remains, right? Yeah.
Well, it was a year later, and they found him in the water. To go from everything you have, like something happened. Like, did he run from whatever it was? Right? I don't believe that it was Bigfoot. That was something different. Like it matches all the criteria of what David Pilates talks about. Like that gentleman that went missing. He just, there were 6 or 4 guys that walked in, and he was the oldest guy, and he's not going to go wandering looking for more game. His gun's missing. Everything's missing about him. And same thing happened, except for they found him, but 2 kilometers from his stuff. Like, why? None of it made sense. There was a freak system. He was near water, near rock formations, like everything matched up. So, and it was, I don't know if Mount Frosty crosses the Pacific Crest. No, it was that other one.
Yeah.
But it's up in the same area, and all these areas are connected, right? Like it was quite high up, and people hike this trail to go look at the larch trees in the fall. And I mean, it's beautiful up there. So you just don't know, right? I mean, I don't think I'd want to hike by myself. If Dan hikes with me, great. But
yeah, you guys definitely use the buddy system out there.
Well, when people go, let's split up and go, I'm like, no, don't do it. I'm like, don't do it. Because people go missing when you do that, right? They wind up dead, right? Like, no, thank you. I want to live, right? I want to be able to experience and but I know Bigfoot's in there. Like, I know that core, if there's no game in there and he's eating it all, right? Like, and when we got out of the Jeep, like we opened the windows and we're looking for prints that day. I'm trying to smell, because people say that Bigfoot smells. I don't know if it smells all the time, like rotting flesh, because it's, he's eating what grizzlies eat, right? But I don't know. I don't think I'd ever smelt a grizzly smell like dead meat, right? And he eats raw meat. But
there was no scent when we investigated there at all.
I think they can control that somewhat. I
think it's more of a warning
mechanism. Little Bigfoot deodorant.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a skunk.
Yeah. Yeah, skunk cabbage.
Yeah.
But we did, it's funny. We did smell a lot of skunk cabbage, but it's weird. The whole trail, like, and I said to Dan after, it's like, you just feel like you have eyes on you, walking this trail. We're trying to have fun, and you're being positive, and the only person you're talking to is either yourself or your partner, right? And the dog. But it was just funny how he growled only at this campsite. He didn't growl at the first campsite. He didn't growl on the way out. He just growled at this one. And it was like kind of like the middle of, like, it was the Sewakwa Basin. Yeah. And, there's so much, like, there's moose and bear and deer, but we didn't see anything, like nothing.
It was eerily quiet, like she said, for that 18.5 kilometers, to the point where you notice it right away. Like, what is not here that should be here, right? There's no noise in the woods. There was calm winds. There was nothing really blowing, to make that ambient woods sound out there with leaves tickering back and forth. Nothing going on, and absolutely no other noise. It was like, in a sound deprivation chamber, there is nothing. And why? Because there always is.
For how long? Did you say for 18 kilometers it was that way?
18.5 kilometers. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely, like she said, devoid of life.
Like, you're expecting to see even just like a robin. Yeah. It was nothing. It was like everything that lived there was gone. Like, I can't even, it was just weird, eerily weird.
And that survival sense that, as human beings we have when you're being watched, that was definitely present through that whole corridor.
That happens. That happens when big predators are around.
Yeah, you bet.
Something's going to eat us.
Everything smaller than him quiets down.
Yeah.
Well, Terrie and Dan, we thank you guys for being here with us today. We appreciate it so much.
That was awesome.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
You guys be safe out there, and when you get back out and see something else, or
I will phone you first.
Let us know, would you?
Yeah, please. Let us know.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.